What's up, YouTube? How's everybody doing? This is your boy Reg here. Okay, originally I was not going to do a review tonight. It was Friday night. I was just going to give myself a day to relax. But I had a crazy ass night, and I was like, I'm just going to do a review. Luckily, I already had this review written down, and the review that I'm going to do tonight is David Bowie's Young Americans album. This is actually his ninth studio album released in 1975 on RCA. Producers include Tony Visconti, Harry Maslin, and David Bowie himself. Excuse me. And singles include Young Americans and Fame. All right, so you guys should know who David Bowie is. I've spoken about Bowie in very high regards, on this channel. Yeah, last album I reviewed from him was actually the David Live album, which I said was a pretty solid live album. Pretty solid live album and whatnot. And with that live album during the Diamond Dogs tour, he ended up kind of like rearranging the tour and stuff like that, especially like trimming down like the stage design and whatnot. And so he morphed it into like a more basic presentation of the tour and stuff like that to accommodate with his newfound love for soul music, basically. What's also interesting too about this era was because during that tour, he fired a lot of musicians in that tour, and he hooked up with like a lot of Philly musicians. Cause you gotta understand, like back in like the early to mid '70s, Philadelphia soul was definitely getting like a lot of popularity. Cause you had cats like Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, you had the Delphonics, you had, of course, the Stylistics, who I reviewed the album months ago. You had the Intruders, the Spinners, and whatnot. And so, with that being said, he also got like a few musicians from Philadelphia too, like who was like in that area too and stuff like that. So, one vocalist, he went on to become one of the greatest soul singers of all time. He definitely went on to make a name for himself. And you guys might be surprised if you're a fan of David Bowie, you probably know about this, but this singer, he laid some background vocals, before. Sorry, there's like a little fly in here. Before like everybody knew of him, and it's this guy right here. Yeah, Luther Vandross. Before Never Too Much, before all that shit, he was doing background vocals for David Bowie. He was and of course people know him as a head of Patti LaBelle's fan club and shit like that. Okay, there's a mad fly in here. I'm just gonna open this door just in case it gets out because it's really annoying the fuck out of me. But yeah, so that's something that in case you guys should know. And if you guys have seen videos of like the Young Americans era, you'll see like Luther Vandross, singing background and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Alright, and he also brought in Andy Newmark too. And Andy Newmark, you guys should know he was a member of Sly and the Family Stone, another band I've spoken in high regards to and stuff like that. And so this is actually another time where he worked with Carlos Alomar. Carlos Alomar, basically, who he would work with David Bowie for more than 30 years and shit like that. So yeah. And with this album, I'm really about to get into like a lot more of his, a lot of people might say some of his experimental and polarizing works and stuff like that, because I've noticed a lot of people want to say how the Berlin trilogy was the beginning of like his polarizing work or experimental period, but let's be real, David Bowie has always been experimental or ahead of everybody else and whatnot. He has been just, oh my god, like different aspects, but with this album, he just redefined himself, and that's why I call this album like an R&B, more of an R&B review rather than just plain rock review as you will see from David Bowie, basically. And yeah, so with that being said, I want to make sure I'm getting everything. I want to make sure I get everything with this. Okay, so yeah. And yeah, I actually don't have the album in stock. I'm gonna get the album very soon because I see the album a lot, especially when I'm in Barnes and Nobles and whatnot. So I'm gonna get the album very soon. But I just thought, like, since I'm gonna talk about the album. I'm just gonna talk about the album and whatnot. You guys know how I do. Fuck it. All right, so this album has 8 songs. Let's get this shit started. Track number 1, Young Americans. Very dope song. This song has been highly regarded as one of Bowie's most influential songs and stuff like that. Just right away with this song, you can definitely see the different sounds he was doing. Like, cause with his previous albums, he started. Okay, this fly is really, you know what? Yeah, with previous albums and stuff like that, it had like a hard rock or some shit like that, but he kind of stripped it down to like a more soulful vibe and shit. You know what I'm saying? Um, with Young Americans, what I got from that song was he was just getting like the American feel. He was just getting like the American feel and stuff like that. How it felt like just being in America, just like, cause like if you come from like a foreign country, you go into like you come from like a different country and stuff like that, or over a country overseas, that's the correct term, excuse me. And you come to this, you witness a different atmosphere. You just start taking it in, basically. And I guess that's what I got from Young Americans. Very dope song. I love that song. I love the line when he said, um, "Blacks got respect and whites got his soul train." And it's kind of interesting too because this album was so popular, with the R&B crowd that she actually performed on Soul Train. Actually, she was one of the first white artists to perform on Soul Train, and he was pretty drunk. According like he was pretty drunk when he did the his performance and shit. And you could pretty tell like this was the Thin White Duke era. Well, get into the Thin White Duke era, which I'm gonna talk more about that in the future. So yeah, Young Americans, definitely a dope ass song. Love that. Track number 2, Win. My opinion, that's like my favorite song off this album. Very smooth song. David Sanborn's like saxophone really gravitated the song to another level and stuff like that. Yeah, man. Like every time I hear this song, I always get blown away. Like very blown away by this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like very dreamy, atmospheric kind of song. Um, what I got from this song was how he like no matter how much you work hard on certain shit, just know that you're your biggest critic. All you have to do is win, basically like that. That's what I got from the song. And believe it or not, this was actually a last minute addition to the album, basically. So kind of, I'm glad they put this song on the album, which I'm gonna talk more about some of the outtakes after. Next track, Fascination. Oh my fucking god, this song is so fucking funky and shit. Oh, I forgot to mention about Win. There's a couple of lyrics I do want to talk about with this song. Um, couple of lyrics I do want to talk about with this song. I love the part where he says, um, I'm fresh on your pages. Secret thinkers sometimes listening aloud. Life lies dumb on its heroes. Wear your wound with honor makes someone proud. Someone like you should not be allowed to start fires. I just always love those lines and shit like that. Yeah. Um, and so back to Fascination. Very dope song. Love this shit. Very funky. Um, that was originally a Luther Vandross song that he kind of kept under the wraps called Funky Music. And yeah, like it was very, very dope song and shit like that. Next song, right? Oh. This is like my second favorite song off this album, believe it or not. What I got from Right is he's talking about oral sex, just to put it bluntly. And if it kind of reminds me of like when you go into like one of those jazz clubs and shit like that, or if you watch the movies, jazz clubs, and you and the guy sitting at the bar and he sees this fine ass chick. Yeah, he just wants to buy a drink and he wants to holler at her and stuff like that. Kind of puts in that same vein, that same setting and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Man, right. This is a very dope song. I love this song. Taking it all the right way, keeping it in the back. Taking it all the right way, never no turning back. Like, gets you when you're down. Nobody do it again. Get off. Sometimes doing wishing. Sometimes like fucking David was having orgasms on this fucking song before Donna Summer. Let's just leave it at that. Next track. Somebody up there likes me. Um, this was a pretty vintage song. Not really one of my favorites, but yeah, I like it for what it is. Next track, Across the Universe, which was actually a Beatles cover song. It was actually a Beatles cover song for a charity compilation called No One's Gonna Change Our World, which I've not heard for the life of day. So yeah, I could have done with instrumentational wise, it was pretty good, but I could have done without this song really on some real shit. Yeah, and like I said, I'm not really. I like the Beatles, but from '66 to '69. But I'm a pretty honest fan. Let's just leave it at that. And that song was originally released in '69 too. So yeah. Then we have Can You Hear Me was the next song, which was it's a love song and stuff like that. It's good. I like the song, but I felt like it kind of dragged on a bit too much and stuff. So yeah, that's my opinion on that one. And the last song off this album was called Fame. Very dope song. Nice way to end off this album. This was pretty much like his breakthrough. This was pretty much his breakthrough song, to say the least, and shit. You know what I'm saying? Because it was actually his first number one hit single in a U.S. Hot 100. It was actually also co-written by John Lennon too. So for all my Beatles heads, like y'all, all my Beatles heads, y'all might take that into consideration and shit like that. Um, yeah, with fucking Fame and shit like that. This was another last minute addition, and he's talking about like the dangers, how one faces fame and things like that. Just they talks about that. Love some of the lyrics he was saying. Some shit like, hold on, like fame makes a man take things over. Like fame lets him loose, hard to swallow. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe John Lennon actually did some background vocals on this song too. So yeah, very interesting song. And the 1990, the Fame 1990 is not bad too. It's actually pretty dope. Pretty dope song. And all my Jay-Z fans should know about that song too. Yeah, you can definitely feel the cocaine between John Lennon and David Bowie within that song. So yeah, very iconic song, Fame. All right, so overall, this album is a very influential album when it comes to David Bowie because this is really the album where he called his album Plastic Soul, as he would describe it as, like, according to him, squashed remains of ethnic music as it survives in the age of music rock, written and sung by a white Limey. And Limey just basically British slang basically. Yeah, I like this album, but I felt like towards the second half of the album, it starts losing its punch basically. And if I were me, I would have taken out someone, I mean, across the universe, or Can You Hear Me, and replace it with Who Can I Be Now, and It's Gonna Be Me. Those songs should definitely replace it. It's Gonna Be Me, man. Oh my god, very dope song. Like he's just singing his ass out with that song and shit, And it's just very soulful. It's a very soulful song. Um, yeah, very interesting album. I would even say this is probably David Bowie's most interesting album to date, and probably the album that really sustained his power, his winning power, like with the mainstream. Getting into Soul Train, crossing over and whatnot, only to change the tracks again and shit. Because give me 1 second, because when it comes to David Bowie, the first couple of albums I listened to was Station's Young Americans and this album right here. Yeah, I've done a review on this album. I think like a couple days after he died, actually, because if I'm not mistaken, it actually started selling around my neighborhood after he died. So this is in my opinion his best studio album to date, in my personal opinion. Very his transitional album where he's forwarding like the Berlin trilogy by leaving like the soulful vibes of Young Americans and part of David Live album and shit. Very dope album, must have in your collection. And Young Americans is an album, yeah, you guys should definitely take a take a chance to peep and shit like that. A lot of David Bowie fans actually kind of criticize the album, talking about, oh, he's going soul and shit like that. He's doing the soul music and whatnot. Yeah, it's just I would just give it a fucking chance if I was them and stuff like that, because like David Bowie, he's never gonna stick to the same sound. Like he's always gonna go for different sounds and whatnot, and that's one thing I've always loved and respected about David Bowie, and that's one thing that kind of sustains his power like for decades to come, for generations to come. So yeah, David Bowie, Young Americans, 1975. This album has been re-released a couple times and shit like that, and I believe they actually re-released it part of this box set Who Can I Be Now, that was released late 2016, where it has the Diamond Dogs album, the David Live, Young Americans, and it has like a couple of Station to Station, a couple of extra shit like that. So if you guys want to take a peek of you know the experimental David Bowie between 74 and 76, from Diamond Dogs up to Station, I will most definitely cop that box set and stuff like that. Or if not, if you just want to get the single ones, feel free to get some of the single ones as well. And that's all the time I have for this album. Stay tuned for more. Peace.